If you're a fan of the 430 movie, you'll love Best Movies Never Made, hosted by myself, Josh Miller.
And Steven Scarlatta.
Where we explore some of the greatest movies never made, like E.T. 2,
Johnny Quest,
Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian,
and Halloween 3D.
New episodes available every other Monday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello, this is not Gene Roddenberry, but if I was around, I would definitely be listening to Inglorious Trexperts, the new podcast from the people who brought you the 430 movie. Check it out, 430movie.com.
Hey, this is Mark A. Altman, and if you're a Star Trek fan and you haven't already picked up the hardcover edition of the 50-Year Mission, it's time for you to go out and get the paperback version of the 50-Year Mission, which is just out in paperback from St. Martin's Press. This is the complete oral history of Star Trek, the first 25 years, from me and Ed Gross. And if you think you know everything there is to know about Star Trek, think again. The 50-Year Mission, out in paperback now. And if you can't read, the audiobook is still available.
Electric Now? What does that mean? It means that you can watch us do these wonderful podcasts and so many other things, too.
Hey, Darren,
yes.
When I was a kid, I used to love the Electric Company. You know why? Because I knew one day Morgan Freeman would be a great actor. But if there's one thing I love about electricity that's even better than Schoolhouse Rock and the Electric Company, it's the Electric Now channel.
But also, they're turning it on and bringing the power.
Yes, they are. And we're turning you on. And no,
that's highly inappropriate.
Okay, well, we are turning on the power here at Electric Surge, where you may have, for the last year or so, been enjoying these amazing audio podcasts like Inglorious Trexperts, the 430 movie, Best Movies Never Made. Now you can watch
You ain't
them.
seen nothing yet,
No,
but
you
now
haven't
you
seen
can.
anything. You can on Electric Now, available on Stirr TV and Distro TV, which you can download from your favorite app store, and soon coming to the Electric Now app. Get to see us as you've never seen us before, because you've only seen us in the theater of the imagination. Now we're going to be on your tablet, on your telephone, on your TV, and in your house.
The call is coming from inside the house.
So make sure to check out Electric Now, streaming now on Stirr TV and Distro TV, and coming soon to the Electric Now app.
Back in the 70s and 80s, before the advent of VHS, chances are if you saw a classic movie, it was on the 430 movie. With their famous theme weeks, it was a chance to see movies you'd never seen before and get reacquainted with some old classics. So now, join us for the 430 movie.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Mark A. Altman, and I have Steve Melching, DAREN DOCHTERMAN, Steve Melching, as seen on TV.
and Ashley Edward Miller.
Well, who'd I say? Who'd I call him?
You said Steve Melching twice.
That's how excited I am to see Steve Melching. We've been recording all these Inglorious Trexperts without Steve, and here he is again. So, yes, as seen on TV. We got the Ginzu knife. We got the 8-track tapes.
Now how much would you pay? Wait, don't answer.
Tonight, an all-new 430 movie.
We are so excited because we're about to share with you a week of fun-filled movies as seen on TV. This is a week, and I believe it was Mr. Melching's idea.
No, it was
DAREN DOCHTERMAN. I'm sorry.
Might have been my
Sorry.
idea.
Well, let's give it credit where credit is due. Darren and Steve had this wonderful idea that we do
We'll
a
see
week, we program a week of movies based on that are derived from television series.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to do.
As opposed to the boring books and plays that movies have been based on for so long. Let's get something interesting like
Exactly.
TV.
I mean,
Suck on that, Gone with the Wind.
We did Shakespeare Week. You know,
The
it's
Shakespeare
like,
guy.
What's Shakespeare compared to the Love Boat? I mean, come on. So
If only there was a Love Boat
Kind
movie.
of the same thing.
But you know what? There is, and I'm so excited about it. Have you seen the trailer for the 430? For the
430 movie?
Have you seen? Have you seen?
Let's make it a 430 movie.
Have you seen the trailer for Fantasy Island?
Yes.
Doesn't that look creepy and
It
good?
does.
I
Now,
don't know
there's-
what I think.
There's no gorilla who's in love with his handler at the zoo, but
Come on, we all love Roddy McDowell as Satan. Who doesn't love that? So it's
No,
like
that's
that-
good.
I mean, you know, if you go back and look at Fantasy Island, how it started, how it was dark, and you know, there was these intimations that Mr. Rourke communed with the devil, or was the devil,
Or was an angel.
or it was purgatory,
Or
or
with an angel,
something.
yeah.
And
I don't know if Fantasy Island works without Ricardo Montalban.
Well, I
to
know
be
Con
quite
doesn't.
honestly, Con certainly doesn't. But we'll wait and see. I'm trying to have an open mind, but come on, folks.
I'm disappointed you feel that way.
Well,
I am, because I think it looks really cool. Plus,
What if they cast Benedict Cumberbatch?
I really like the director. I've worked with him before,
Jeff?
and Jeff Wadlow.
So you're speaking from a personal bias then?
No, I actually, when I heard they were doing Fantasy Island and he was doing it, I emailed him. I said, "Oh, I'm so excited! I think Fantasy Island is one of these things that has this enormous potential that has yet to be, really
enormous danger potential."
And then after seeing the trailer, I was really excited because I thought it was great.
Is this a theatrical movie? It's a TV movie, right? Or is it?
No, it's a theatrical movie. It's a theatrical movie for Blumhouse.
Okay.
As seen on TV. Which brings us to
Smiles, everyone.
As seen on TV. And we it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious because, generally I think the conventional wisdom is that movies derived from TV are somehow lackluster or cash grabs, and there can't be real art there.
It's an easy way to get something into theaters with a well-established brand, as they say nowadays, that the audience is hopefully very familiar with and will go to see a big screen version.
Right.
And at least I think they got off to kind of a slow start. Maybe in the early days of movies derived from TV, they weren't so good. They were kind of cheap and coasted on a lot of goodwill. But I think there have been some good ones.
We haven't talked about this before, but I'd kind of like to eliminate any of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movies that were just pastiches of 2 episodes edited together, like Destination Moonbase Alpha.
Oh, right.
We're not talking about something that was originally produced for TV and then turned into a movie.
So Battlestar Galactica, for instance, is not eligible,
qualified.
whereas Buck Rogers in the 25th Century would be because it came out in theaters
That's
first.
true. It did come out in theaters first.
But it hadn't been seen on TV.
Yeah.
It wasn't a remake of something that had been a TV show first. So I don't think Buck Rogers would be eligible.
That's correct.
I saw Buck Rogers in the theater in the summer of 1979.
Was Ashley there? Or had you left
No,
Colorado?
we were living in Hawaii at the time. We had moved out of our house in Hawaii and we're staying in a hotel until we left the islands to move back to the mainland. And
Dog the Bounty Hunter wasn't involved, was he?
he had to drag me out of that theater. I was so excited.
Well,
and then I read the novelization from it that
Yeah.
summer.
see, you're a very
too.
erudite gentleman. I read the photo novel. I read the photo novel. I didn't make it to the novelization.
Too many words.
too many words.
Words.
Exactly. But great. So today, as seen on TV. And speaking of being seen on TV, we're all seen on TV.
Oh my God.
In case you haven't checked out the Electric Now channel, you can go to your app store and download Stirr TV. You can download Distro TV, download Xumo, and soon come to IMBD TV, and check out all these wonderful podcasts like the 430 Movie, Inglorious Treksperts, Best Movies Never Made, and a wonderful array of electric entertainment from Leverage to Outpost to The Librarians, and a bunch of great movies. And so,
Not to be confused with Destro TV, which is
Destro TV?
G.I. Joe's nemesis.
Cobra Propaganda Network.
Right.
So if you're a fan of the show and you're curious what we look like,
That'll last for about 30 seconds.
430 movie expert this week is Cobra Commander.
if you wonder what this sound is,
I'm a computer.
you can see that I'm actually drinking some water if you are watching us on Stirr TV. So anyway, check out those apps. The Electric Now channel is great. There's also some other terrific channels. There's one devoted to Crime Story, Wise Guy, and Space 1999. So what's not to love?
Yeah, I put the distro one on my Roku, and it works great.
I've been watching
distro
Stirr
on the
because
Roku?
Stirr has a program guide and Distro doesn't. So I can
I'll
always
look for
see
Stirr then.
what episode of 430 Movie or Inglorious Treksperts is coming up.
There you go.
A good point.
And then
Great point.
And then I get laughed at by my family every time I have it on. Stop watching yourself, Dad. Okay.
Who has the clicker? We got to turn on the 430 movie.
We got to turn on the Ginsu knife commercial. So, and then you know what they do have, Steve? This is for you. They have the Buzzer channel on Stirr TV, which is old game shows.
No.
Yeah.
Like from like the 70s and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking
so
for
old
that.
Richard Dawson family feuds and stuff, Match Game and all that with Gene Rayburn.
As I turn on the Game Show Network, and it's all Steve Harvey Family Feud. I don't want Steve Harvey.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
either.
need Richard
That's
Dawson.
not Richard. It's not the Richard Family Feud to me. If it's not
Steve
Richard
Harvey's
Dawson,
up there. Steve Harvey.
No whammies, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies.
and
Steve Harvey is the Benedict Cumberbatch of Family Feud.
that's really funny. So, and then we watched. Unfortunately, we talked to Aaron Gray about Battle of the Network Stars, but I don't think anybody's showing the old Battle of the Network Stars yet.
That's way too bad.
Battle of the Network TNA.
She had great stories.
She had
didn't
great
she,
Did
about
have
Battle of
great
the Network
stories.
Stars?
You'll have to listen into
That's
Inglourious
going to be
Treksperts.
on coming up on Inglorious Treksperts. So, okay, later in January, 2020, Aaron Gray talks Battle of the Network Stars. What it has to do with Star Trek, I don't know, but it
William
we
Shatner
didn't care
did Battle
because
of
it was
the
Aaron
Network
Gray.
Stars, so yeah, it's just awesome.
And William Shatner was on Battle of the Network Stars, so I guess that is the loose connection,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Thank you for salvaging that one
Yeah,
for me.
sure.
Salvage
Okay,
one.
so
Salvage
as we
motion
do on the
motion
show,
picture.
to remind the audience, we curate a week of movies based on the theme. This week's theme is As Seen on TV. As always, we start on Monday with Stephen Melching.
Please, no wagering.
And then, of course, by the time we get to Wednesday, it'll be Stephen Melching again. So,
My
Steve,
clone.
Monday, what are we watching?
Well, my pick for Monday is a movie that gave us one of the most iconic and memorable dialogue exchanges of the 90s. And that is, I didn't kill my wife.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I don't care.
Andrew Davis.
Andrew Davis is The Fugitive, starring Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee
David
Jones.
Toohey.
Written by David Toohey and Jeb Stewart. David Toohey, of course, has written a number of really...
Dan Weber's nemesis.
Yeah, it was my brother-in-law, our friend Dan Weber,
Dan-in-law.
once told David Toohey he wrote some of the best. He's one of the best B
He had
movies.
just seen The Arrival and said
Yeah.
it was
It was a great
the best
B movie.
B movie he's ever seen.
and he took great offense at that.
He said, "I don't
you
write
should
B
know.
movies."
and I'm like, but it's not an
but you
insult.
do.
He writes A, B movies.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's brilliant at it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a B movie. B movies are
No,
awesome. We love
love
them.
them.
But I think The Fugitive is an A movie.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's an excellent movie. It was, I think, what I recall is one of the first movies based on a television series that really was something special and unique, even though it followed the television series created by Roy Huggins pretty closely, with Dr. Richard Kimball having been convicted and sentenced to death for a murder he didn't commit.
Right.
And
By a one-armed man.
by a one-armed man.
Andreas Katoulis of Babylon
Babylon
5 fame.
And also Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, that's true. He played a
Romulan.
Admiral Tomac.
A couple of
Yes.
times he played the
Tomalak?
Tomalak, thank you.
And as Richard Kimball is being transported to prison, there's an accident. I think in the TV series it was a bus accident, but
Right.
they raised this is a motion
Raise the
picture.
stakes. Gotta raise the stakes.
Their bus gets hit by a train, and one of the great stunts or great.
It's pretty great.
It's a stunt and a visual effect
Yeah.
all in one.
Yeah. They did. I think they did use a real train, but clearly they had a miniature for a lot of
There
that.
was a miniature, and it was Harrison Ford was in front of a big front projection screen.
Was that like Introvision, or
Yes,
was it
exactly.
Introvision process? And that shot still holds up. It looks
It
great.
does. It does. Holds up a lot better than some of the Introvision shots in Outland.
Yeah, and what the thing I really love about this movie, and it was.
I'm sorry. go ahead.
And it's a lesson that I try to keep in mind all the time. It's kind of it's almost like writing 101, but you measure your hero by how great your villain is, or antagonist. Tommy Lee Jones isn't a villain per se, but he's
No.
the antagonist. He's doing his job.
You could argue that Richard Kimball is the antagonist.
Yes, yes, he is the fugitive. The
But
fugitive.
the great thing is they're both really smart.
yes.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Watching
And
them
like
go up
Tommy Lee
against one another.
Jones is incredibly smart, incredibly experienced. This is his job, his career is to
Hey,
track
what's
down
going
these
on
people.
here? We're eating oranges and making IDs. Where are you at, Desmondo?
And he's got this whole team of people and all these resources at his command. He's ordering around the local police, and he's got his team. And Richard Kimball, Harrison Ford, is out there on his own, trying to elude this guy. And the film has this great structure where about the first half of it is just simply him escaping and eluding and evading Tommy Lee Jones and the marshals, and in the second half it transitions to him sort of going on the offensive and trying to solve the mystery of who killed his wife.
Right.
And
Finding allies and
finding allies and being so smart about it, infiltrating back into the hospital looking for clues and
saving a kid's life.
Yeah, and as Tommy Lee Jones is pursuing him and realizing he's back in Chicago, Tommy Lee Jones realizes what he's doing, and at first he truly didn't care whether or not Ford, Kimball was guilty or not.
Right.
But I think he came to respect his drive and realize might be something to this, and they, in a way, almost end up working together by the end.
They're remaking it now, and I don't envy them.
Oh boy,
it's really, really, as far as action movies go, I wouldn't, I don't like to use the word perfect. Nothing's perfect, but
No,
it's as close to a perfect.
It suffers a little bit from third act malaise.
Yeah,
it's a little long, maybe,
but it's entertaining.
But why remake? I mean, I guess the answer is self-evident, but I always felt the best remakes are movies that had great potential that was never realized initially. This is a film that was the third highest grossing film of that year. It was nominated for 7 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Cinematography, Editing, Score, Sound Editing, and Tommy Lee Jones, of course, won for Best Supporting Actor.
And got a spinoff, U.S. Marshals, which paled in comparison.
Great.
I want to say one thing about The Fugitive before we talk about that movie, which is, again, as seen on TV, it's very important, I think we talk about, what it was remaking. Yeah. The Fugitive was a huge show until the MASH finale. The finale of The Fugitive was the highest rated show ever to air on television, where the Richard Kimball finally caught up with the one-armed man. That was, of course, David Jansen. And then the one-armed man was famously played, or the inspector who was chasing him, Tommy Lee Jones, was Barry Morris of Space 1999 fame. Fame being a relative
and
word.
you can see Space 1999 on Distro TV.
Right. That's usually my line. But The Fugitive was a huge show.
One of those cultural phenomena of its time.
And it
Appointment
continued
television.
to be the template that so many shows followed throughout the 70s. So you had Incredible Hulk was basically The Fugitive. Right. The A-Team in a lot of ways was The Fugitive.
What people don't realize was that the movie was based on Chris Elliott's The Fugitive guy on
David Letterman.
on David Letterman's show. Yeah, not really.
What I love about that movie is that it's not just that Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones are both great. It's that they're both heroes that are pitted up against one another. And it's not just that they're both smart, they're both good, and they both have a code of ethics. And Tommy Lee Jones, we feel like we can cheer him on and root for him, even though he is opposed to Richard Kimball. He's opposed to Harrison Ford because we know that he has a code, and we have faith that he's going to do the right thing. And when he figures it all out, he's going to be on our team, but he's going to have to figure it all out first. Yeah. So we immediately forgive him. With the line you started this all off with. It's like I don't care. Well, we know why he doesn't care. Right, and it's like we see that play out over the course of the story. I think that's the key to why Tommy Lee Jones became such a household
and
name
that part was
that
so brilliantly written, and Tommy Lee Jones played it so well because if he played that character straight, he could have been just a villain. But he had a certain humor and panache to him that you just kind of liked him.
Yeah, and you could tell he was having fun.
Yeah,
because that's his job.
Yeah,
people forget too. This was really the movie that brought him back into consciousness in the sense that JFK, people saw him, Tommy Lee Jones, and said, wow, remember what a great actor this guy was? And then this was his first big mainstream movie after JFK. And everybody just loved Tommy Lee Jones. And then he started working, constantly. He was in everything. He was the Morgan Freeman of, if you will. And really, it's such a great performance. And of course, that scene where, on the waterfall is really one of the great action scenes. I mean, you look at some of the 80s, the pre-CG era, you have Die Hard, you have The Fugitive. I mean, these are great action movies before everyone's jumping through rotor blades of helicopters and hanging on the helicopters and, jumping on the wings of, F-15s and whatever, it's just...
Not to name anyone out, Tom Cruise.
Well, what's great about it is that it throws a bunch of choices in front of the audience, right? Things that we're wondering about. Will Tommy Lee Jones shoot him? Like, will he jump over the side? Like, just all of these things are happening. What's going to happen? And there's no obvious answer to what that is. And it's not dependent on, hey, look, the stunt is going to be great. If it had only been he takes a header, out the back, that scene still would have worked because all the tension was in the question, like not in how the consequence was depicted.
Great choice. Great choice to start us off, as always. Thank you, Steve. That brings us to Tuesday. With Darren Doctorman. I'm curious to see if he picks what I think he's going to pick or if he goes in another direction.
There's so many.
I'm curious to see what you think I would pick.
Should I write it down on a piece of paper and show the rest of our panel?
If you'd like.
You need a pen.
I'm gonna keep my.
This is like password.
I'm gonna keep my selection quiet for a minute.
I do not have a writing implement. This is what I get for missing staff meetings. Here, no, Steve's going to throw me a pencil. If you're watching this on Stirr TV, oh my God, you've just seen me be impaled by a pencil.
I was going to say, this is going to end so badly.
Oh, Steve! Oh, the humanity. Okay,
the high definition spurting blood is really.
I agree. I think I agree.
You think you agree?
Well, no, I've got a reason why I think it might.
Are you going to show me?
But I can't tell you until after.
It could be.
Yes.
Okay, one of those two. Okay, great. Okay. Let's see how predictable
All right,
it is.
Sergeant Bilko, it is. No.
Call 54.
I'm going to go to 1991.
Oh, what the?
Son of a
Smarty.
Bitch. Yeah.
Barry Sonnenfeld. The Addams Family.
Oh. Okay. Well,
good choice. It's a really wonderful adaptation of.
It's one of the best adaptations of a TV series ever. The casting is great. Raul Julia, Angelica Houston, Christopher Lloyd,
Christina Ricci
in her first
Cousin Ed is Cousin
second
Ed.
role, and the lovely Cousin Ed. Its tone is almost spot on to what it should be. The original 1960s TV series is, of course, a classic. And a lot of people, unfortunately, have not seen it these days because there's no real way to see it.
Other than Blu-ray streaming.
Well, it's not on Blu-ray.
It is. It came out last year. Yeah, it came out early this year. Both of them did.
I didn't know.
Yeah. They released the Addams and Addams Family Values.
No. I'm talking about the TV series.
Oh, the TV series.
I was saying the TV series isn't available.
It is streaming, and it is on DVD. I'm trying to think where I saw it. It was on Netflix for a while too.
Huh. Anyway.
Okay, sorry. Whatever. It's very difficult to see,
but it gets lost in the shuffle. They just released an animated version of it, CG animated.
How was that?
Movie. I stayed away. I didn't want to have anything to do with it.
It was fine. I mean, but look, it's like it completely pales in comparison to the Sonnenfeld movies. Like
part of the fun of it is seeing this all in live action.
Yeah, that's right.
And Carl Stryken, who played Lurch, is perfect.
That's right.
Absolutely perfect. I mean,
and he also played Mr. Holm.
Yes, he did.
That's a
Star Trek connection.
You want a funny Carl Stryken story?
I don't know.
This is probably better for. He's also the Giants. But it's probably a better story for Inglorious Treksperts. So years ago, it was right after Free Enterprise opened. Rob and I were guests at a convention in Vegas with a bunch of other people, a Star Trek convention. He was one of the guests, and. What ended up happening, we all got there. We were all on the same flight. He was one of the guests, and I think it was Aaron and Matt, a bunch of people. So we got there really late. Oh, and I remember we checked in the hotel, and it was such a dump. We said, we're not staying here. We're going to go to the Mirage. We book the hotel. So anyway, long story short, we're starving. Everybody's starving. The only place that we could find, we just wherever the next place that was open, we were going. Went to Planet Hollywood. With Carl Stryken and a bunch of actors from Deep Space Nine. Very well known, a couple of very well known people. And they just come running out and they say, "Oh my God, it's a real star here at Planet Hollywood. We're comping dinner for all 20 of you."
We've never seen any before.
It was because of Carl Stryken. So, they gave us all these Planet Hollywood gift bags and swag, and they wanted to take pictures, and they, completely rolled out the red carpet because, they couldn't believe it. And it had nothing to do with Star Trek. It was it's Lurch from the Addams Family. They were so excited, and it was unbelievable. And they said, "You can order whatever you want."
Wow.
And it was like it was.
And then you looked at the menu and say, "Oh, we don't." Really
No, I like those Rice Krispie.
Oh yeah, the
chicken
white
treats.
Rice Krispie chicken.
Yeah, the Captain Crunch treats, right? So, but it was
funny.
so funny. And it was just like I remember we were embarrassed. We were all embarrassed that we were going to Planet Hollywood. But it was like I don't know how in Vegas it was the only thing that was open, but whatever. We were over there, and like a lot of things had closed, and it was open, and we're like, "Are we really going to do this? This is so
1 o'clock in the
ridiculous."
morning, that's
and
probably your best
we
bet.
went to Planet Hollywood. Yeah, and we went to Planet Hollywood, and it was just so, and they just gushed over him, and he was such a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And then we found out apparently that the guy who did the convention, I think he had the mob loaned him money, and then nobody showed up, and so like he disappeared on day 2. Nobody knew where he was.
Wow.
It was a really bizarre weekend.
Well, at least you got a free meal out of it.
We got Captain Crunch chicken.
Captain
bites.
Crunch chicken for free.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks to Carl Streich. So I'm very indebted to Carl for that lovely meal, and he was a lovely guy.
Indeed, and you know the magic of that first Addams Family movie is that it hadn't. It's in a very sort of cartoony mode, but still within the realm of reality. It dances that line very carefully, and it's actually a lot closer to the Charles Addams cartoons, cartoon drawings, than the TV show. But it's a wonderful combination of all of it, and I think it's great. It suffers a little bit from the added characters that they did. The woman who comes in trying to scam the family and is using Uncle Fester as a plant in there to try and get the Addams fortune. It's a little contrived, but no more than the original show had. And it's just so much fun, and I have a little personal connection because I worked on the sequel, Addams Family Values, and I got to know a lot of these people. And the show has so many gags in it, a lot of stuff with Thing running around, and we basically distract you from the story to see Thing playing with a skateboard or whatever. But it's just so much fun, and I really enjoyed the first one, and that's why I was so glad to work on the second one. But it's a great TV adaptation, and I enjoy it still today.
Well, if we were doing as seen in the New Yorker week, it would be a great because of course it's based on the Charles Addams, those wonderful comics, not comic, it was panel, cartoon
panel strips,
that he did, and then I, like you, grew up on Addams Family
The
on
TV
TV
show, yeah.
on was it Channel 11, Channel 5, I think Channel 9.
I think it might have been Channel 11.
Yeah, I think it was Channel 11 too. It was sort of pre for Star Trek.
Because I think
It was
Munsters was on
3 or
Channel 9.
3:30. No, I can't. Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because they were on two
No,
separate...
Channel 11 was Munsters, I'm pretty sure. Okay, hello, audience.
Doesn't matter now.
Okay, hey, Forfeit does it really does
50 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But I also, like you, felt I really enjoyed Addams Family.
Mm-hmm.
And that wonderful cast, and Yvonne DiCarlo, who I loved in Crisscross. Actually, I loved her in the Addams Family, and then I loved her in Crisscross. Right. It wasn't, but
and the great Vic Mizzy music.
Yeah, and Felix Sela, Tweaky, who was Cousin It. But really fun, and I have to say, I'm surprised by your choice, but I really liked the choice because it was a perfect marriage of Barry Sonnenfeld's bizarre style with the right material.
Yeah.
Where sometimes you think, what movie is this guy making? Because he started as a DP, and he has this really distinctive style, wide angle, kind of bizarre. Wide angle lenses and stuff, which distorts things. It's just really, and it really was a great, and I remember it was a surprising movie. It's kind of like, I'm not going to say because that may be on the list, but really well done. And plus, I always loved Raul Julia. He was great in Kisses, Spider-Woman. He was great in Tequila Sunrise, and he's great in this.
I had a moment meeting him on the second movie. I was bringing in storyboards to show the director and the visual effects supervisor one day, and he was there, and they were setting up a shot, and he was standing next to me. He said, "So what do you do?" And I said, well, I do some storyboards. I have some gags here for Thing. And he looked at it and he said, well, that's marvelous. It was a lovely little moment that I had with Gomez.
That's great. That's great. And by all accounts, he's just a lovely. He was a lovely guy. Died very young, and
Indeed.
it's unfortunate because he was like, the cool Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
Really.
Why isn't Oscar Isaac starring in an Addams Family remake?
Well, he just did he was the voice of Gomez in the animated version.
Well, there you go.
That's why.
That answers your question.
Which was edited by Steve's friend from USC, Dave Salter.
Oh, no kidding. Dave Salter.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So
There we are. Tuesday.
He was. I wouldn't know. I haven't talked to him in 10 years. Nor do I intend to. Okay. So
We come up to Wednesday.
We come to Wednesday, which brings us to Steve Melching 2, or otherwise known as Ashley Miller. Ashley, you are less predictable, although Darren proved to be very unpredictable. So can you? What's your pick for Wednesday?
My pick for Wednesday really comes down to this question. Do you want to see something really scary?
Again, I'm totally surprised.
Okay.
My pick for Wednesday is 1983's Twilight Zone, the movie, directed by not one, not two, not three, but 4 different directors, all of whom you would know. Steven Spielberg, John Landis, Joe Dante, George Miller. Perhaps you remember some of these people and their contributions to pop culture, especially that Spielberg kid. The thing that I really dig about the Twilight Zone movie, having, by the way, I full disclosure, I worked on the ill-fated, God help us, UPN revival of the Twilight Zone back in the 2000s.
Second of 9,000.
Yes, second of a billion. By the way, true story. I got in the mail a certificate from the American Film Institute. It's now up, it's framed, it's on my wall from the AFI for writing on one of the 100 best television series in history for my work on the Twilight Zone. It is just, I have it up on
they don't know the difference?
They don't know the difference.
How nice.
So it's up on my wall of humility.
Oh,
Yeah, Kay got one too, I believe.
Yeah.
She was very proud of it.
Wow.
So I like to lord that over people. What are the 100 best?
That's funny. You don't look like you're 85 years old.
Well, that's also a Twilight Zone episode.
When me and Rod Serling were doing our podcast.
Yeah, right.
So the thing that's really cool about what they did is they actually did it as an anthology.
Right.
I mean, they really embraced what the Twilight Zone is.
Short stories.
Short stories,
Yes.
exactly. As kind of clean and concise as they could make them. There were, I think, 2 original episodes inside the movie. There were 2 remakes. It's a Good Life.
3 remakes.
There were 3. What
Yeah.
was the third? Because it's a Good
Nightmare
Life.
at 20,000
Nightmare on Elm Street.
feet.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
20,000
Nightmare.
feet.
Yeah, and it's a Good Life. No, and the other 2 were
Nightmare in
original.
20,000. No, Nightmare in 20,000 Feet.
Was yeah.
Kick the Can
That's right.
was a remake.
Kick the Can was a
Okay.
remake, yeah.
and
you're right.
It's a Good Life was a remake.
Yeah.
But John Landis'
And John Landis's-
Time Out was original.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy! I didn't realize that Kick the Can was
Yeah.
a remake.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right. The Spielberg one.
Yep.
They kind of varied in quality. I thought like the Nightmare at 35,000 feet in the Twilight Zone movie version of it, because they were like on it with John Landis playing the William Shatner role.
John Landis, John Lithgow.
Oh, I say John Lithgow. My God, what's wrong? By the way, did you know?
Jessica Von Butterman.
John Landis did have a nightmare on this movie, but
did.
that's different.
Burgess Meredith was the narrator
Yes.
of the film, but I like to call him Meredith Burgess.
That's right.
Okay.
It's all coming together.
So I'm having like another one of
Wow.
those days, kids. Anyway, John Lithgow played the William Shatner role. It is awesome.
Yeah, he's very good.
George Miller directed that piece, and it's just everything that you would expect from him, except there aren't like cars driving by with like dudes strapped to him playing guitar. It's I think most famous, sadly, for the incident that cost Vic Morrow his life when they were filming
And 2 kids.
Time Out, and 2 kids. There was a terrible helicopter accident, and there was just all sorts of a drama that came out of that, and there are all kinds of stories about getting John Landis out of the country. And I apparently, like, there was a whole section of the movie that a lot of which they had shot that they simply did not include in that episode because of it featured those kids, and they felt that they shouldn't put them up on screen under the circumstances.
Right. It was just a horrible tragedy.
Horrible tragedy. I mean, I can't even imagine, what that must be like. I mean, it's interesting because, we hear more and more about accidents that occur on set. Sometimes they're horrible, like fatal or life-changing accidents. Just terrible things happen to stuntmen, sometimes to the actors, and it just, I think is a reminder that even though, the movies are artifice, like there's actual risk that comes with making these films, and how important it is, how hard everyone has to work to stay on top of so many details, because one little slip and the illusion of danger becomes real danger, and people's lives are destroyed, ruined, changed. But obviously John Landis went on to make other films, but I can't say that his career was ever quite the same after Twilight Zone.
No. Yeah, filmmaking can be very dangerous when you consider, how often you're working around vehicles or in unfamiliar environments or with pyrotechnics, explosives, or all kinds of things can go wrong if you're not incredibly careful. And even if you are, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I heard a story from one of the stunt guys on T2, that's actually the stunt coordinator, and he was talking about the sequence where they go into Cyberdyne and the cops are coming in after them, and like the SWAT truck kind of drives through into the lobby and all of that, and just arguments with Cameron about how everything was staged, and a concern that when the SWAT truck spun out, it was going to basically take out Video Village.
Oh,
and there was like a big blow up over that, but like those things, like you just kind of have to take seriously. It's just, but it's kind of too bad that that's the conversation that Twilight Zone, the movie, kind of has surrounding it. Yeah,
but there's a lot to like about that movie. I mean, obviously John Lithgow in Nightmare on 20,000 Feet is terrific, and although no one will ever top Shatner, as we know, but and it's a good life, has things to recommend about it. It's interesting. Joe Dante did a nice job, but it was well suited to his, to him as a director. Kick the Can is less effective, but it was one of the last, wasn't it one of the last roles for Scatman
Brothers? Yes.
And he's quite good in it, as he always was. And then the John Landis thing, we'll never really know exactly how. I mean, is widely considered sort of the weakest entry of the four. But I think what the film is best remembered for is really the bookends with Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks,
right.
Which are hysterical and scary, and it's Albert Brooks. I mean, it's like so cool.
I think one of the things that the movie makes absolutely clear is how much better the TV series is. How well the TV series still works. And all the remakes of the episodes, the original episodes, are so much better. Even though the movie versions are good and they're certainly serviceable, but the original versions are so much better, and it's amazing.
Well, it's interesting. I think that Serling was obviously, because of budget constraints, and he was a playwright, was like writing for the theater of the mind in a lot of cases, and I think a lot of those stories were structured in that direction.
Yeah.
And once they became visualized like in a cinematic way, they lost some of their power because suddenly somebody else was putting those images in front of us.
Right. Absolutely.
Great choice. Okay, so that brings Thursday. My pick. Did you see Dora the Explorer?
No.
Probably not. It's cute. It's kind of like a faux Raiders of the Lost Ark, but there's this crazy scene where they go into the cartoon. Like they're sort of on drugs. It's not quite because it's a kids movie, but it's like this surreal scene, the field of poppies, yeah. And suddenly they find themselves back in the cartoon and in the cartoon characters, and it's a magnificent sequence. It's really fun, particularly for those of us who had kids who got stuck watching Dora, had that tune stuck in our head of Dora the Explorer. But that, of course, is not going to be my pick. I'd be an idiot for picking that.
Peppa Pig.
God, don't even bring up Peppa Pig. God, why? Why would you do that? Don't do that. No Peppa Pig.
Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do.
No. That goes Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda, do 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 do.
Which brings us to my pick, The Mandalorian. Actually,
Transformers.
I'm very inclined to go with the pick that I thought Darren was going to have.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like, do we leave that for Friday?
Well, maybe.
I mean, I just can't count on you guys to come through for Friday.
Really? You can't count
I
on
count
us.
on you. I don't know. Because I have two picks, and I'm not sure which to go, which are both your picks.
Ah,
And I don't know which one.
I see.
Because one we picked on the show before.
Yes, we have.
But we did say that second season we're allowed to repeat, which of course is one of the pioneering adaptations of a TV show to a movie when the original TV show was still in production, which of course is Batman '66, which is a wonderful film. It expanded the scope of the universe. We got to see the Batcopter, and we got to see just that opening credit sequence alone.
I would kind of argue that because it was done by exactly the same production team and had exactly the same writers, directors, cast. It's kind of exactly like Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Okay.
It's essentially the TV show.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll buy that. It makes my job easier.
Is that one of the ones you thought I would pick?
I did.
Yeah, I think you need to sort of reinterpret the material in some way with a new cast or new director or a new take on it.
Okay.
Somehow.
Well, look. Then I'm going to pick this show. We also picked this in the shadow of Star Trek week. But I have to pick it because literally, it's a movie that I would argue changed my life. It had a huge impact. It doesn't get the respect and admiration it deserves. And
Manhattan wasn't based on a TV show, Mark.
But it did come out in 1979, the year of my pick, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, 40 years ago.
Okay.
It has been days since I've thought about that movie.
I always could feel like days. But look, it would be easy for me to go and try and find something obscure and esoteric to go. I mean, I would
Apparently not that easy.
But well, you want? You want to go with the monkey's
go
head,
ahead.
or you want to go with
the monkey's head, based on that
the
TV
monkey's
show.
But
the monkeys.
in
It's
head.
like the
Colon.
monkey's paw
In
only.
head,
now.
right.
If Alan Spencer was here, I could go with the nude bomb,
Right.
But I'm not, because I recognize the tremendous danger potential in picking the Brady Bunch. It got to be Star Trek, because Star Trek, in a way, is the movie that's set as seen on TV off.
Absolutely.
It proved that you could take a show from the past that had a fan following that and change it and transform it writ large onto the big screen and make it work and create a viable franchise. Whether you're somebody at home who loves Star Trek: The Motion Picture like we do, or thinks it's boring and slow and lethargic, and then you're just an idiot. But you can't deny the fact that Star Trek, that first movie, more than anything, was transformative in terms of the genre.
Nothing.
Because, Star Wars and Jaws changed the blockbuster mentality. The platform releases became wide. But Star Trek changed a lot, too, and it doesn't get the credit. And I've said this on our sister show. It showed that it was the beginning of IP fever, in a sense.
IP freely.
So my pick, and again, you know what? I'm not going to talk about Star Trek the Motion Picture. You want to hear me talk about Star Trek? Go to Inglorious Treksperts. We talked
listen
about
to
it all
every other
freaking
episode.
year.
Yeah.
Okay. We just, we on the 7th we did a live audio commentary. We had Brian Fuller talk about it. We talked about the music, the brilliant Jerry Goldsmith score. We talked about the director's edition.
Go over there and get sick of it.
Well, then you know what? It's Steve Melching's turn.
Yeah. So anyway, Steve.
But there is something truly magical about Star Trek: The Motion Picture when I grew up watching the show initially on a black and white television, and then seeing reruns, in color later, and the animated series, and then stepping into a movie theater and seeing that refit Enterprise on a gigantic screen with that brilliant Goldsmith score playing. That was really, it just gave you goosebumps as a kid. You just never imagined anything like you'd be able to see anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look, it's so much tied up in nostalgia too, because reading Starlog, it was a TV series, it was a movie, it was a TV series, it was a movie, and then sitting in school, counting the hours. I'm just counting the days, counting the months, but eventually counting the hours till school let out that I could go and get to the theater to go see Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and to get there and be turned away by the officious ticket taker who would not allow me and my friends in because they didn't allow kids under 18 into the theater.
As depicted in the opening sequence of the
I
classic.
mean, which I later,
Enterprise.
in the height of narcissism, turned into a sequence of my first movie. But and then to find my mother at the bank where she was like depositing her paycheck for the week, and having the insight to think, oh, okay, I know where my mother is. I'm going to convince my mother to come and take us to Star Trek: The Motion Picture so we can get in. Kept the guys online, and this is long before you could, buy tickets in advance. We'd been waiting, for hours. And, got my mother. She took us to see the movie, something I'm always indebted to her and something she'll always blame me for. So
kind of like The Hunger.
There's so much. Yeah, exactly. So there's so much about Star Trek: The Motion Picture that was sort of seminal for me. So if we're going to do a Seen on TV week, there are a lot of movies I love, and we'll talk about them for Friday, but that to me was like, that was the largest.
Well, I will.
Now, I will show, can I show the director's edition?
I think you have to.
Okay,
You
well, I
must.
will show the director's edition with the second viewer off restored.
Yay!
That's my fantasy. It's fantasy theme week. So
Let me just tell you, Darren, you were nearly trolled with that second viewer off moment in the 51 greatest moments of Star Trek.
the director's edition is a brilliant.
But I love you, so I didn't.
Thank God to these guys, to
Yes.
Darren and to Michael and to Dave
And Robert Wise.
and Robert
only out of
Wise
respect.
for bringing this show, for what they did, to elevate and show people what the film could have been in its theatrical release if only they had the time to, test it and edit it. And it's amazing what they've done with the director's edition. So I'm going to show the director's edition, not the original theater. Now, on December 7th, I believe in watching the original
rough cut.
theatrical release.
The rough cut.
But or as I call it, the theatrical release. But for this 4:30 movie, I want to show the director's edition.
Okay.
Because that's what we're gonna do
The only thing I would
in 4K on my 4K TV. I can dream.
The thing I would add to this conversation about Star Trek: The Motion Picture is in the context of TV week, as Seen on TV week, is that we brought up a point about Batman 66, that it was the same crew, the same writers, directors, actors, it was the same sets, it was all of that. It was basically the show, but kind of on TV. It was not really different from a Battlestar or from anything like that. And I think that's true.
I would argue
Or
that if we had more time, but okay.
Or that to really qualify for this week, it needed to be some reinterpretation of that thing that had become popular. What's interesting about Star Trek:
Why
The
is every
Motion Picture,
reinterpretation we don't understand called
the
a thing?
right?
Thank you, Thing.
What's interesting about Star Trek: The Motion Picture is that it is a reinterpretation by not by all of, but by many of the people who had been involved in the original. And
10 years later.
10 years later. And it felt of a piece, yet it also felt as though it was launching its own new thing. So it's fairly unique as an adaptation of a television
You know what
property.
else? It felt like a motion picture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
It did not feel like a TV episode.
No. Even a big TV episode.
It had scope. It had an epic quality. And it was big and it was expensive and, belonged on the big screen. So why a lot of people who've only seen it on TV think it's slow and plodding and don't love the movie. They haven't seen it on the big screen.
Yep.
So anyway, that takes us to Friday.
Friday.
I almost picked The Avengers, not the superhero one, not the one Scorsese hates. I almost picked
the one everybody hates.
the Ray Fiennes only because I love Sean Connery dressed up as a bear.
Yeah.
You know, I can't go there with you.
It's a terrible movie.
It's awful.
But I love that scene. The lost episode of 4:30 movie, I picked Serenity, the Firefly reading.
Well, what about something like Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
That qualifies.
Interesting.
Was that the first, or was Life of Brian?
No, Holy Grail was the first.
Meaning
Holy
that was something completely different.
Well,
but that was just
that was
remakes
just the remakes of the skits.
This was their first, I think, original story that reunited the cast.
You could make that argument.
I think I would allow it.
It's a stretch.
It's a little bit of a stretch. I'll allow it, counselor.
Is it up there?
See if it's up there.
Arguably,
We don't have a board.
Other than Star Trek, probably the most successful translation is of television to film is probably the Mission Impossible series.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
2 for 2.
Right. She had an eye.
Now, the question I have for you about Mission Impossible, because I agree, I think it should be Mission Impossible 2, but which...
Not Mission Impossible.
No, not Mission Impossible 2. Do you go with the flawed Brian De Palma one that set off the franchise, or do you go with the best of the films, which I think is Rogue Nation? But I would probably go with the De Palma movie, despite its myriad flaws, because it
kicked it off.
It kicked it off, and it
took
set
chances.
the template, and it did take chances. And Emmanuel Barrett is in it, who's amazing.
Yeah, and I also like to imagine that Jim Phelps is actually played by the original actor in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like to imagine.
You might imagine
Yeah.
that Peter Graves
Peter
instead
Graves
of John Voight.
instead of John Voight.
Yeah, well,
because how much more magical would it have been if it was actually him?
it would have been great.
Absolutely.
Although I wouldn't have made him the bad guy then.
Sure, why not?
Why not? I mean, that's what I love about it. Is
That-
the audacity
that's the
of
switch. That's the switch because it's the way the character is written, you could understand that. You could understand his motivations.
That's right.
And his hatred to Tom Cruise.
I'm still waiting for Zachary Quinto to play Paris in one of these things.
No thanks.
There are a couple of comedies that are great. I mean, we didn't talk about the Brady Bunch, which I think is wonderful,
Yeah,
inspired.
the first one especially.
The first one.
It's
21 Jump Street.
They're both
I was
okay.
just going to say 21 Jump Street's
21,
hysterical. And I never watched that show, nor do I ever want to watch the show, but the movie is wonderful.
Wayne's World.
Wayne's
Party
World.
Time.
Well,
Excellent.
Wayne's World 2, which has that wonderful ending to Simon and Garfunkel, and Charlton Heston stepping in as the gasoline attendant because they have some day player who's awful, and they said, we need somebody with
This
more
is a movie.
gravitas. And then Charlton Heston steps out as the guy, and then they're running, and he's at the wrong church, and then he goes to the other church.
Right across the
I
street.
mean, okay, it's not a great movie, but the last 15 minutes are fantastic.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Mod Squad movie.
Oh.
I thought it was pretty entertaining. I was going to say the South Park movie is actually, I think,
Interesting.
legitimately a great satire. A really
Although
good
that
movie.
might fall under the category of same.
That's true.
Yeah.
Same
Same bad time, same bad channel.
That's true.
Police Squad.
Please go
Oh.
out. No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can go along
The
with
the
that.
Naked Gun.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
The Naked
Thank you.
Gun.
From the
Based
files
from the files
of
of
the
Police
Police
Squad.
Squad.
Yeah, Naked Gun and the sequels are pretty good on those
Yeah,
too.
and they're consistently
Nice
funny.
beaver.
They are consistently funny. How many were there? There were three?
Three.
Yeah.
And the first two are really good.
Yeah.
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 33 and a third.
The nude bomb, on the other hand, is not.
It is really not. Although there is that sequence that I will always remember, and I don't know why. It's Maxwell Smart he's in this this log cabin on a mountain in the snow, and he's like at the mercy of the bad guy, and he's like telling him that they're surrounded by 100 control agents, and then it's like, well, no, we're not, and would you believe like some whatever of park rangers, would you believe a very angry Saint Bernard? For some reason, would you believe a very angry Saint Bernard is just stuck with me forever.
The thing in that same scene that always stuck with me was the moment when the fight begins and he sees a bullwhip coiled on the wall and grabs it, because I was in the midst of Indiana Jones fever at the time.
Now, I would recommend that if anybody is interested in this movie, they pick up the Kino Lorber Blu-ray, which our good friend Alan Spencer does the commentary on, which I'm sure is fantastic. I haven't heard it yet, but knowing Alan, what a great raconteur he is, I'm sure it's great. I will say I was online at the Universal Studio Tour recently. We were there at Universal, and they play the 5 minutes where they, have the chase through the old Universal in 1979.
Right.
Like, that's all you need to see.
Yeah.
It's like that microcosm, that trip down memory lane where you get to see the. But you know what else they showed? I mean, I was watching. I was like, "Oh, this is the Get Smart scene where they go through the Battlestar Galactica exhibit and all this." Which I love all that. Just seeing it, it has nothing to do with the movie. It's ridiculous that they go through the Universal Studio Tour and commandeer these trams. But they had, and I'd never seen this, Alfred Hitchcock introducing the Bionic Lab at Universal.
Oh, wow.
And it's this like little 5-10 minute sequence where Alfred Hitchcock is talking about the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Lab at Universal. And I'm like, he must have just, Family Plot must have just come out. And it was like,
Steve Austin.
And
a man barely.
it's crazy. And I'm just like, I felt like telling everybody on the line, shut up so I can listen to this. I tried to get my phone out to videotape it because I've never seen it anywhere else. And it was just, it was so great.
One other thing I loved about the nude bomb was his desk car.
Right.
And he's driving his desk around. That just cracked me up as a kid.
Since we're on the Universal lot, the A-Team.
Yeah.
Except Fox did the movie.
Yeah.
I don't care.
But yes, it was Universal.
It was the Universal show.
And it was every episode on the backlot of.
But I thought the movie version wasn't bad at all. I
Liam
found
Neeson
it. Yeah,
and,
I found it very enjoyable.
God help me, I kind of liked it when they were navigating a falling tank by firing the gun. I just thought it's insanity.
It's insanity, but it's plausible.
It has the benefit of never having been tried. So, also out of the box. And since we were not able, because the movie does not exist, to program Muppet French Connection for Hackman Fever Week, the Muppet movie.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that qualifies. Yeah.
Yeah,
That movie's
absolutely.
wonderful.
And I just watched it for the first time in years recently, and it's delightful. I love it.
Time
And the
to
score.
beat the Muppets.
Although the villain wants frog legs, and it's like it's not exactly the feel-good kids movie of the year. Although I know you guys don't like it, but you're much more Muppet spurts. But Muppet But I really like the remake. I'm not the remake, but I like the reinvention, the reboot, the Jason Segel Muppets. Yeah. I really like that a lot. And you could also argue First Contact. I would never say Star Trek Generations, but First Contact, qualifies as.
What about Galaxy Quest?
Yeah,
that was based on a TV show.
Based on the TV show Galaxy Quest. Yeah.
What about something like Borat?
Well, you could say it's based on Ali G. Did he ever play Borat on the Ali G show? I think he did.
Oh, yeah.
So Borat would qualify. Borat. Boy, that's a movie that completely captured and dominated the zeitgeist, and now nobody talks about it.
Very short period,
and then,
like
completely,
a year or two. My wife.
Yeah. Except in Bulgaria, they still talk about Borat all the time. I couldn't understand. What is that?
The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long.
Or something.
So let's see. My vote for Friday would be Mission Impossible.
I feel like
no bloody A, B, C.
Yeah.
Although I still think Rogue Nation's is a better movie, but for our purposes, Mission Impossible.
I agree on both counts.
I think before we settle on something, are there any TV shows that we would want to see as movies that we haven't already?
Yes, there is.
MASH.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking. Pass.
Okay, pass. Okay, we go to you, Darren Docterman.
I've always wanted to see a Gilligan's Island movie.
Oh, that's the reason you asked the question.
Yes,
just so you could say that.
Of course.
Okay, I agree with you. I'd love to see. It's amazing there has not been a Gilligan's Island.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable throughout all the IPs that are floating around in the ether.
Well, I just want to say, if Adam Sandler wins the Oscar for Uncut Gems, there's no chance he's ever doing Gilligan.
Now Darren, what Darren's not telling us is that years ago you had a thing called Not Coming Soon, where you mocked up phony movie posters, and you cast the film
Which
with
was inspired.
With Keanu Reeves as Gilligan, Brian Dennehy as the skipper, Harrison Ford as the professor. Michael Douglas as the millionaire, Sean Young as his wife, Madonna as Ginger, and what's her name?
Marianne.
She was in Beetlejuice.
Oh,
Winona Ryder?
Winona Ryder as Marianne.
And who is the native?
It's a mystery. Mystery.
It's a mystery
guest.
question mark.
Yeah.
Who is the native?
But
the Pacific Islander.
it was all taken completely seriously. It was a serious
Oh, it was
drama.
brilliant. I mean, you did this about 20 years ago, and
More than that.
the key art you created was amazing. The casting obviously was spot on. It would have been glorious.
But I can't believe that no one has done it.
I don't understand that either.
Oh, well.
I don't get it.
Yeah, considering they did, the Brady Bunch movie from Sherwood Schwartz,
Exactly.
why not Gilligan's Island?
But, there was such a
What's-
great
what's
take
one of
on it
yours?
that they're still living in the 70s. What is mine? Magilla Gorilla? No. Hong Kong Phooey? No. I would say, it's tough because a lot of the shows that I love have been made. Wise Guy, probably, the Ken Wall series. Although I'm not sure that would work in 2 hours because what it did so well is it sort of pioneered serialized television.
Right.
What would be
Tales from the Gold Monkey.
Dude,
Tales of the Gold Monkey? Dark Room.
I love that.
Bring him back alive.
Yeah, do a crossover between Tales from the Gold Monkey and Bring Him Back Alive.
I still like to see a Battlestar Galactica movie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's coming.
No, they're doing
You know
the
what?
new
No,
TV
actually,
series.
you know what I'd like to see?
It's complicated, but yes and no.
Well, we'll have to talk about this off the air.
No, yes, no.
No,
yes.
no.
And
no,
you like
no,
Italian as well.
from what I hear.
I'd like to see. Well, I guess there was a movie, but it wasn't initially intended to be a movie, but a live action adaptation of the Clone Wars series and characters, a continuation of that stories.
That would be
How
fantastic.
how did we forget the Flintstones?
Oh, yes.
Because it's taken me
it's-
years to forget.
Now, are we talking the Flintstones or Viva Rock Vegas?
Well, I think Viva Rock Vegas is better, but
The Flintstones was
Flintstones
infamous.
was-
Like I remember, it was the poster child for having 30 writers on a movie.
it was the poster child for not doing this kind of thing.
Yeah,
Right, yes. No, I thought that was a Periscope. Not a Periscope. McHale's Navy.
No, that's Sergeant Bilko.
Oh,
McHale's
Operation-
Navy was brilliant compared to Sergeant Bilko.
Green Acres.
Green Acres would make a
It,
great
it actually
movie.
would make a great movie. I personally, at first I was thinking the $6 Million Man, but actually I think the Bionic Woman would be better.
Yes.
Because I actually think that was a better show.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the $6 Million Man and I love Steve Austin, but I think that Bionic Woman was just a better series. It was just, she was a more interesting character.
Interesting. Interesting.
And maybe you're just wrong.
Maybe I am.
And you want to see Charlie's Angels done, right?
Again,
Yeah.
Because
I want to see
such
a
beloved
new Charlie's
franchise.
Angels film completely rebooted every year.
What about the Jetsons?
You
Every
know,
year?
That's another one that I don't know why they haven't gotten to yet.
I would love to see that.
I know that they've gone into turnaround and development on
times.
a million
Remember, it's
times.
going to be
on-
Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, that would have been horrible.
Okay. Well, listen, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But
Fine.
It's been great.
Go, you've stayed your
Mission Impossible.
So Monday,
Monday is The Fugitive.
Tuesday,
the Addams Family.
Wednesday,
Twilight Zone, the movie.
Thursday, it's Star Trek, the motion picture. And Friday, it's Mission Impossible. Edited by Paul Hirsch, who has a great
right.
book out now and has great Mission Impossible stories. And directed by the great but uneven Brian De Palma. We got to do a Brian De Palma week one of these days.
yeah.
That would be good.
I think that
Tuesday,
would be
Mission Impossible.
So anyway, we want to thank everyone for joining us for this 4:30 movie. And if you're a fan of the podcast, you may want to check out Electric Search's other podcasts, like Inglorious Trexperts, the only podcast for Star Trek fans with a life, every Saturday, Rebel and the Rogue, a Star Wars podcast every Tuesday, Best Movies Never Made every other Monday, and coming soon, Two on Who, the new Doctor Who podcast. If
So
you
wrong.
what?
Just Two on Who?
Two on Who?
I love that title.
Yeah,
I
Natalie
also
came
love
up
it
with
too.
it.
Two on Who?
Natalie, our producer, came up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to call
naughty.
it. They had a cute title, which was Doctor Who and the Podcast of Doom, but it was long. And then Natalie said, "What about Two on Who?" And everybody
I
fell in
thought
love
that
with
was
it.
me, but that's all right.
Take credit for that, but I don't think I
That was me.
It was Darren?
Yeah.
Darren Doctorman! Is it up there? Number one answer! Good job, Darren.
That's all right. Natalie, you can take credit for it if you'd like.
Darren, credit where credit is due. Well done, Darren.
Why start now?
If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And we're going to start reading reviews in the future. So, like, if you put it up there, we may mention you on the show. So that's something to look forward to in future weeks as we read some of our best reviews, which are, some of our best reviews. They're all good, so why would we not read any of them?
So you too should add a great review.
Because we may read one of them on the air. Okay. I keep saying on the air like we're doing radio. Hello, America. They're coming. Watch out for the Germans. Okay. Also, a very special thanks to Bill Ritter. Bill Ritter, what's your pick?
You mentioned almost all of them. How about Scooby-Doo?
Oh, Scooby-Doo,
there
written
you
by
go.
James Gunn. Good choice. And directed by, what was his name? Raza Gosnell, or something like that?
Right.
Meredith Burgess.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, and welcome to 2020. Did you have a good holiday?
Oh, great.
Okay. Fantastic. Glad to hear it. Happy New Year. Good to be back in the studio.
Yes.
And Natalie, our producer, thank you. Natalie, what's your pick for As Seen on TV Week?
You set up at 21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street. Good choice. Good choice. And very special thanks. Hey, Zach's back there in the dark. Hey, Zach. Do you have to agree with Ashley, or you got your own pick?
No, I'll second his pick.
Fantastic. You're a good assistant. And Dean Devlin, without whom the show would not be possible. Welcome back to the 4:30 movie. Happy New Year. And we're join us. Hope you'll join us next week as we're back with an all-new theme week. Until then, Eyewitness News starts now.
This episode brought to you by Juice of Safu. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of Safu that the mind acquires speed, the lips acquire stains, the stains become a warning. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. Set your mind in motion with Juice of Safu.
This show is produced by Dean Devlin and Mark A. Altman and is an Electric Surge Network production.